Welcome to the Between Mediums podcast. I'm Bex.
And I'm Betsy.
Betsy and I are both professional mediums, albeit pretty new ones. Betsy, I like to say Betsy is about 10 steps ahead of me in this game. And I met Betsy in a development circle where I had the opportunity to give a gallery reading. And the loved one that I brought forward was actually Betsy's dad in spirit. And so that's the first time I met her. And what a great way to meet someone. Great way to start a friendship.
Yes.
And and Betsy very quickly became one of my most trusted contacts in my mediumship work. She's the person that I ask for advice. I text when I have a really rough reading or maybe something didn't click, something I need help with. She is just such an incredible medium. She's such an incredible friend, and she has an incredible gift of talking about mediumship and spirit in a way that I think everybody who does this work needs to hear.
I'm so glad that was our first meeting because you read me. And I think I've shared this with you before, but you brought through my dad,
Mhm.
who I don't think had been passed for very long when that reading took place. And you did such an amazing job bringing him through. And yes, you had so many validations about like who he was. But the most important thing that came through was the message that you shared. And I think that is the heart of mediumship is when you can really deliver a message from a past loved one that is healing to the person who is receiving the reading. Because you shared a line that my dad said, and it literally to this day, I can remember it to a T, and it really was life changing. And I truly believe that mediumship is a healing modality for those who have lost loved ones, especially those who've lost loved ones who they had perhaps difficult relationships with when they were here in the
Yes,
physical world. Yes.
definitely.
So once you delivered me that message, I just felt a connection with you and a trust with you. And I feel the same way where I go, you're my go-to person. I know you'll give me honest feedback. And I think that's what we desire so much in this space is a safe space to practice and be honest, but also feel supported.
So that is what we're doing here. We're just creating the resource that we wish we had.
Yeah.
Med Mediumship is the Wild West, in in my opinion.
It is.
We're just a
It's
bunch of
uncharted territory.
yes, we're cowboys on the frontier, and we are doing our best. And
Mhm.
having the resources, having the maps, having these conversations, would have been invaluable in the beginning of my development.
I couldn't agree more.
I like to describe Betsy as a chai latte. She is bold, she is spicy, and she is 100% warm and comforting. And that is what she is going to bring to these conversations.
Well, that's so sweet of you to say. Oh,
Betsy, today I want to hear about kind of how you got into mediumship, how you started this work. What is your origin story?
well, my origin story has many parts and phases to it. And looking back, hindsight's 2020, where I realized that spirit and I have always been connected. And I've always felt very intuitive my whole life. Like I could pick up things on people and sense things. Um, but I realize now that spirit was really just dropping some breadcrumbs for me along the way to show me how connected I am to source and
Yes.
how divinely guided my life truly is. And so for me, I the mediumship journey for me really took a front row seat in my life in 2021, right before my mom passed. In 2020 and early 2021, like the rest of the world, things were very chaotic in my family, in politics, in the world, and I didn't quite see eye to eye with a lot of my loved ones, which caused a lot of friction. And it was really difficult to navigate that time because what my heart was pulling me towards was not necessarily in alignment with what others were feeling they were pulled towards. And it was kind of hard to live in that space. And at the same time, my mom was declining in her health, as well as her dementia was getting much worse. And so I just found myself really in a dark place, feeling like I was a fish swimming upstream and going against the grain, and almost like I didn't belong here, like something was off.
Would you consider this time in your life kind of like the dark night of the soul?
Absolutely. It was probably the darkest time I've ever gone through, to be quite honest. Family discord. My mom is ailing. During this very dark time, in addition to receiving my own internal guidance about what was right for me, I was also starting to receive what I now understand to be premonitions. And they were premonitions in regards to my own loved ones. And because I had no idea that this was spirit trying to communicate with me, a lot of it I thought was just my mind making up these scenarios and these worst case scenarios in some cases. And
Like
that
anxiety, almost.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. But my body felt it as if it was real. And so it was really hard for me to understand what was going on. And as time progressed, these premonitions kept coming true. And every time they came true, it was almost like, oh, I felt that. I knew that. Um, and at the time that I got the phone call that my mom was on hospice and nearing the end of her life, um, things were still difficult with her spouse at the time, who was her sole caregiver, and other family members. But I knew that I had to go see my mom in her final days. She was living in Colorado at the time. I'm in Southern California. So my sister and I got on a plane and flew there to go see her. And we flew, I can't even remember the airport we flew into, but we flew into an airport where it was quite a drive to get down to where she was living. And we were driving along the Colorado highway as the sun was setting, and it's a gorgeous landscape, regardless of what time of day it is in Colorado. It's just gorgeous. And my sister was driving, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and there were a lot of heavy emotions weighing on me as we were about to go see our mom,
Of
who
course.
was
Yeah.
really in a really bad state. And full disclosure, I had a very difficult relationship with my mom's husband, and we really butted heads a lot and clashed, especially over the care of my mother. Um, and so I was really unsure how I was gonna like show up in this space. So we're in the car, we're driving down the highway, and I'm just staring out the window, looking at the mountains and the clouds. And all of a sudden, I literally felt like something like energetically came into my body. It almost felt like a hand went into my chest. This sounds so strange, but it literally felt like a hand went into my chest, took my heart, and flipped it 180. And in an instant, all of my anger and my resentment and my frustration with, my mom and my stepfather and just everything that had just kind of been it coming in on, or kind of like, what do you call that? Closing in on me, uh, just completely lifted from my shoulders. And I like literally felt instant lightness, and this made me cry. I instantly felt compassion for my stepfather and for what he was walking through. And I saw things through different eyes. Um, and, the sun continued to set. We got to my mom's house well into the evening. It was dark. And we walked through the door of that house, which I had never been in. That's another story. So, a house I'd never been in. I hadn't spoken to my stepfather in months. And I just walked in and I just hugged him, and I felt nothing but love and compassion. And, it was really tough to walk through that time watching my mom going through her end of life process, because it truly was for her an end of life process. And I'm just so grateful that I got to be there by her side and kind of help usher her out of this world and into the next. I just knew that when she passed, that things were completely different now. Like my life just felt different. I went home a different person. I looked at my family so differently. And it really led me on a self-discovery path of journaling, meditating, really going inward and healing my own heart and my own soul so that I could show up differently in my life because I knew that the way that I was operating before was not the way that was right for me.
Yeah, it's like I'm hearing like spiritual reset. It feels like this
Oh, yeah.
super dark time and
Oh,
then
yeah.
literally your heart completely turned and it feels like there is light and
Yes.
emotional release and everything changed. That's
Yeah.
incredible, Betsy.
Yeah. And it's crazy because it's like I'm the same person. I'm still the same person. Nothing really changed except for like where the heart space that I was coming from. It doesn't mean that like my life got instantly easy and everything's butterflies and
No,
rainbows.
of
That's
course
that's
not.
not how this works. But I knew that there was something greater because I mean, as we're both mothers, and you know that giving birth to a child or witnessing somebody giving birth, it changes you. It really changes you and makes you realize like there's something so special about these. I call them portals. Birth and death are portals to me.
Yes.
You agree with that
Yes.
too? Yes.
Oh, yes.
And, birth is very talked about, shared online, but death is something that we don't really talk openly about or share what our experiences are like.
It's very taboo still. It's
Very
very
taboo.
taboo still. Yes.
But what I found in my own personal experience watching my mother pass is that watching the death experience is actually some of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed,
Mhm.
ever. And it almost feels like a sacred initiation to be
Oh,
a witness to that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I came home after my mom passed, I went into a deep dive of just pouring into myself with journaling, meditating, reading, and just really understanding who I am and like what my spirit and what I'm being guided to do. And about 6 months after my mom passed, I had the opportunity to attend a weekend retreat that was hosted by a psychic medium who I've worked with, who I just adore dearly. And I went to this retreat and we did some exercises together to kind of read each other's auras, tap in mediumistically. It was done in a very like light, supportive space, and I started to see like some connections there. And then in late 2022, that same mentor of mine had advertised that she was going to be offering a healer program, which was an in-person 6 month workshop or class where we would meet in person every other week. And she was going to teach how to do intuitive readings, mediumistic readings, and do Reiki certification for us. And I was interested in joining her program just because I've always loved everything that she has offered and felt very safe and supported in that environment. I in no way, shape, or form thought I could be a medium or have any type of abilities to the level that my mentor does. But I just felt drawn to learn more. Like I was just in like a sponge mode at this point in my life. So I signed up for her class and that started in, I believe, February of 2023. And it was a beautiful space with two other ladies who also were stepping into this as well. And when we got to the part where she was teaching us mediumistic readings for people, it felt a little rocky at first, but there was an experience where we had to get paired up and do an actual reading. And I got paired up with my teacher, which no
So
pressure, right?
intimidating. So
Oh,
intimidating.
so
Yes.
intimidating. But it was such a beautiful experience. Where I live, there's a lake nearby, and she normally holds her readings at this lake, and she walks the lake as she does her readings. And so we were just going to walk the lake together, and she was just going to very gently guide me through the process. And I just had to give what I am sensing, and she would let me know if it was correct or not. And so we started walking the lake, and she just open, helped me like open up to spirit. And I immediately sensed a female spirit. I could see what color her hair was. I could tell that she was a family member. And I did exactly what I was taught, which is I just shared exactly what I was receiving. And when she said, yes, that's correct, it was like, what? Okay. And she's like, keep going. What else do you sense? And we just kept walking. And I just really opened my heart up to it. And I started sharing what I was getting, even if it felt like I was making it up. Because as you know, most of this feels like we're making it up.
Oh yeah.
And so we continued to walk, and I started getting visuals of things and sensations of things, and I would share them with her. And, some parts were kind of clunky, but I remember there was, and I can remember it clear as day. We were at this one specific point as we were walking around the lake, and all of a sudden on this side of my body, I was shown a space shuttle, like standing up next to me, which seemed very strange. And I said, I'm feeling there's a space shuttle, like being shown to me. And she stopped walking and turned to me and she said, yes, that makes sense. And I'm like, it does? And I don't remember the exact details, but I think this particular family member lived in Florida and was like very into the space NASA and like went to watch the launches. Like space shuttles and this particular person were very connected. And that's like, as you know, that's evidence in the
That's
mediumship world,
specific evidence. Yes.
specific evidence. And so to get that type of strange information, share it and get a yes and like a strong yes, it was like, wow, that's what this is. That's what this, like, that's mediumship. So I just kept going, doing the reading, and then we were about three-quarters of the way done, and I just kept sharing all these things, and she kept saying yes, and it just felt like it was like pouring out of me, which I'm sure you can relate to this feeling as well. It's like it's just coming out of you. And I remember stopping her at one point and I looked at her in the eyes and I said, I cannot believe this. I have been getting these types of like impressions my whole life and I never knew what it was. And it was like when we left that class, I literally felt like I was floating on a cloud. Like my mind had been blown. Like how can it, like I always thought that mediumship was going to be like seeing dead people walking
Oh,
through the room
yes.
or having spirits wake you up at night trying to
Mhm.
talk to you. And for
Yep.
me that hasn't been my mediumship experience.
Hmm.
But it was such a unique experience to be in that class and to be taught in such an intimate way and in such a safe environment, which I think is the key to open up to your mediumship abilities is to find the class where you feel most comfortable of just surrendering to spirit
Yes.
and trusting, because
Mhm.
that's the key.
Mhm. Definitely. Wow. Okay. So then, how long after you kind of took this class, kind of what was your development journey like? And how long, I guess, did it take you to go from developing to like discovering, developing to deciding you were ready to get paid for readings?
Um, well, it was definitely not a straight line. Um, Our class ended in, I think it was like June of 2023. And right around that time, I had only been doing this in a classroom setting. And I'd been sharing with my husband about what was going on. And I knew that I wanted to practice with somebody in the real world to see, like, is this really real? Can I
Uh-huh.
really do this? And so, uh, my husband and I were having a friend of ours over for dinner. He's a longtime friend of ours. I've known him since I was in my early 20s. I don't know much about his like family, like parents or grandparents. And so I asked him if he would let me practice a reading on him, and he was very open to it. And it was great because after dinner we sat on my couch and my husband sat in on this reading as well. And so this was my husband's first
So
time witnessing
special.
it.
Yes.
It was. And because these were people I trust, and I knew that if I fail, I fail. Like what have I got to lose here? Um, so I just did exactly how I was taught, and I opened up to spirit, and I began getting information from, I believe it was his grandfather, and information about like his parents and their dynamic, and then I got impressions about this particular grandparent's funeral, and that my friend spoke at this person's funeral, like specific details. And it's funny because this friend of ours, he's pretty like cut and dry. He's not like a big emotional kind of guy, so he'd be like, "Yep, yep." Yep. And if he said yep, and I'd be like, okay. And I just kept going and going and going and going. And it's funny because, with no shade to men, but men aren't very expressive about this kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
they were both kind of subdued. And so then our friend left the house for the night, and it was just me and my husband. And I turned to my husband, and I'm like, "So, what did you think of all that?" And I remember he definitely was like, "Yeah, that that was pretty wild." Like I I can't like I don't even remember his exact words. I'd have to ask him if he remembers, but it was like I can't deny that
Mhm.
that was real. Like
Mhm.
that was legit. And I just remember like for me that date is so important to me because it's like that's where I went from oh I've learned this ability to like I can do
Mhm.
this. And so it was like it lit a fire in me, and I just started practicing with friends or, friends of friends,
Mhm.
just to kind of see if this was real. And I've been doing it ever since.
I love how I just really love how you described it as breadcrumbs because it's so many different, it's a collection of moments. Um, Even though I would really love for journaling purposes, if I was ever to write a book, to have it be like one big moment of like, yes, I'm a medium. But it's not. It's not like that. It's like a bunch of different little mirrors reflecting this possibility back to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is part of your story. And it's something I noticed when you were talking, it was like all of these different experiences kind of framed the next experience. Like this is creating the frame for what spirit is asking you to do at this point, and then so on and so forth. And it's
Yeah.
just super interesting that they're each of these moments were prepping for the next moment.
Yeah. And as I've stepped more into this work, I'm starting to realize what those nudges mean when I
Hmm.
get those nagging nudges. They're not nagging in the way they feel. They just feel like you should do this. You need to do this.
Hmm.
Why aren't you doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like I just have to trust it
Uh-huh.
because every time I've trusted it, it's taken me to some amazing places.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can't wait to hear your story of how you came into the mediumship world.
Oh, I am going to I'm going to share some of my breadcrumbs. Um
Great.
Take one from you. So I grew up very religious. I grew
Mm,
up a very religious family, very religious culture, background, and part of this particular faith tradition was everything was really external to you.
mm,
So validation, spirituality, even I want to say like goodness, all of that was kind of outside of
mm,
yourself, and it's part of like this greater community. And so my intuition was a complete alien to me. It's not something that I don't even think I stopped to ever think about, legitimize, because I just feel like I was taught from such a young age that like if my intuition isn't packaged in this very specific way, it's
mm,
not actually real, right? It
mm,
has to
mhm.
look this way and it has to come from this source, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. So I think I grew up in a very detached environment from myself. So all of these spiritual
Mm,
promptings, I know I had spiritual experiences, but I never, I never like legitimized them because they didn't look how I was told they should look.
mm, mhm.
So yes, that's kind of my background. So even when I had maybe these spiritual experiences that happened to me, it was kind of like hush hush, like I'm gonna put it over here, I'm gonna put it on the shelf, and I'll deal with that later. But I didn't want there to be like social repercussions for these
Yeah.
experiences, you know?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of how I grew up. I wanted just a girl that wanted to fit in. And being a medium, being intuitive is not how you do that.
No, no, not in the mainstream world,
No.
especially in a religious setting.
No, no. So yes. So my personal relationship with yeah. with my authority, intuition, anything like that was a complete stranger to me. Um, so I lived most of my life like this.
Mm.
And I got married, I had kids, and I was still in this faith tradition. And when I was around 27, my best friend had a miscarriage. And it
Mm.
was one of the first experiences where I really encountered death and grief that close to me. And I know that's from a place of privilege, right? Like I haven't gone through like these immense personal tragedies, but I'm also someone where I think I absorb things clearer sometimes when the people in my life kind of reflect these experiences back to me.
Hmm.
So I think I'm more of my blind spot than maybe the people in my life around me. And so seeing my friend, my best friend, go through this really devastating loss, it was the first time in my life that I allowed myself to question things, where all of
Mm.
these things that I've been taught were all of a sudden, they felt kind of flimsy, honestly. And they felt like I didn't have the answers and I didn't have the peace and I didn't have the connection. And this person that I loved was grieving and I didn't know what to do about it. And so
Mm.
this experience kind of cracked me open to possibility in a way that was I was completely closed off to because in how I grew up, and not every religion is like this, but usually mediums are kind of a no-no. Like they're pretty taboo. I feel like
Yeah.
I thought they were like scam artists. Like that's kind of how it was taught to me. So this was the first experience is like maybe there's more than just kind of this very slim set of ideals, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so another one of my friends, I feel like my friends are my breadcrumbs in my spiritual journey, you know, like they're here to just drop something in my life that to like, kind of crack me open. And so one of my friends, she called me one night, and this was kind of as I'm like wrestling with my faith, I'm um yeah, I guess deconstructing, moving through things, and she called me one night and she is I my taste in people. I love bold women. Um, Example A, Betsy. But I have so many people in my life that are like that. And so one of my friends called me and she's just like, I have, she's like, you're probably not going to believe me, but I just had this incredible experience. And I'm like, I'll probably believe you. Like, just what's going on? And she's like, well, do you believe in spirits? Like, do you believe like you could connect to spirits and like, do you believe in that stuff? I'm like, I've never experienced it, but like, yeah, I believe it. And she went on to share with me this incredible experience that she had where her loved ones um, visited her home essentially for her son's birthday. And she was able to perceive all of her loved ones in spirit. Her husband was able to perceive all of her loved ones in
What?
spirit. And it was incredible. And they were all kind of visiting her son for
Oh,
his birthday. And it was just like this super powerful, palpable experience that like as she's telling me the story, like my skin is on fire, you know,
mm.
like just this like spirit is like pay attention. and, and so as she's telling me this, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, have you always been able to do this? Have you always known how to do this? And she's like, yes, blah, blah, blah. And I remember the last thing I said to her was, I wonder if I could learn to do something like that. And so that was like the moment where the seed was planted.
Hmm.
Like I have real world examples in my life of this happening, right?
Yeah.
And so this was at a time where I'm like, okay, my next step in life is to figure out, I just am feeling called to kind of understand my intuition, understand what my intuition means. Like what does that mean? What is that? What is this tool that everybody's talking about kind of thing? And so I remember being like God, universe, source, like whoever's listening.
Whoever you are.
Yeah, exactly. To whom it may concern. Um, um, I'm like, if you want me to learn this, please send me a teacher. And I at this point in my life, I was very into human design. It changed my life, and something that
Mm,
was in my human design chart is I have a lot of kind of placements around intuition,
mm.
and it's just a major pillar kind of in my energetic design, and so I'm like I am so out of touch with my intuition. I don't even know what it means, and I was listening to this human design podcast and just passively. And they had like this guest on, and they were talking. And I think I've told you this, Betsy, but growing up in like the stranger danger time, we had sometimes like these families would have like family passwords where
Mhm.
like if you can't pick up this kid from school if you don't know the family password and XYZ. So my family password growing up was Alaska. And nobody could pick us up if they didn't know the family password. And so I'm listening to this podcast and they're just chatting and I'm getting ready for bed and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm crawling into bed. And out of the blue, they're having this beautiful conversation about human design. And then out of the blue, they stop and she goes, "Oh, weird." She said, "The word Alaska just popped into my head." And I remember being completely paralyzed, like head to toe paralyzed, like like my skin was on fire, that same sort of sensation. And without even like missing a beat, she said this, and then they moved on. It was like it was just like this little blip in the matrix,
Mhm.
little blip
Mhm.
in the universe, and they thought nothing of it. And I'm sitting here like this podcast was recorded specifically for me
Yep.
uh weeks ago, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just felt like just kismet, like
Mhm.
this was synchronicity. This was I the universe listened and they sent me a teacher. And so this was the teacher that I ended up taking an intuitive course from. And during this intuitive course, uh, we also were taught how to do like these intuitive readings, these psychic readings. And as I'm doing these readings, I would say something, and they would be like these people that I would read would say, "Oh, that's my aunt that died," or "Oh, that's my dad," or all of these different things. And I remember it being like, I don't like I have no awareness of an aunt in spirit or of a dad in spirit. I have no idea what you're talking about. And but I'm like, but I trust you, you know. And at the end of this like intuitive kind of beginner course, my mentor, my teacher, ended up offering me a mediumship mentorship, and that was what kicked off my entire life.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Oh. So your mediumship mentorship, was that a one-on-one with your instructor
it
for
was a
coaching?
it was a one-on-one, and I knowing what I know now, I think I was very flattered, which was good for me to get me started. But I think ha having my first experience with mentor or mediumship, I think a class setting probably would have been a much better way
Mm.
to go because I felt so much pressure and I put so much pressure on myself. Very intimidated to do mediumship with my my mentor watching every single baby reading that I did.
It's intense.
It is.
It's intense.
It was very intense.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Oh
Yep.
my gosh. So I'd love to ask you. So thank you for sharing all those details. So I would love to know, as you were describing like your experience with your friend who experienced a miscarriage, and then the experience with a friend sharing with you about her loved ones being present for her child's celebration. When you were witnessing this or hearing this, did you start to feel things within your body, or did you start to already start picking up on like visual scenes that at the probably at the time you didn't realize they were mediumistic, but now looking back, do you find that those that you were picking up on things as you were going through those experiences?
Yes, such an interesting question because for surrounding the miscarriage, it's almost like I could feel it. Like I felt like all of the emotions, all of that, I received that very clear sentiently. And what was so interesting is usually if someone has a miscarriage, and I'm not saying this is correct, but this is just kind of I feel like how it's been. You might send them like flowers, you might send them
Right.
a package, and that's kind of the care that they receive. And I remember as I'm going to send my friend flowers, she lives about 4 hours away from me, or she did at
Mm.
this time. And I remember getting these impressions that I didn't know at the time. It says no, no. And I felt very strongly that I needed to actually go see her. And so I did. I'm like, do you want flowers or do you want a hug? And she goes, I want a hug. And
Oh,
so I drove out to her, and it was so interesting because it was such a spiritual experience where I walked into her apartment and it was literally just like this grieving, beautiful, broken woman surrounded by all of the flowers in the world. Like this whole apartment was filled with flowers, and it was just like such a sacred experience to grief um, that I was able to experience like in person, you know? And
hmm,
it kind of shows you how taboo grief and death and all of these things really are, kind of like how we talked about.
yeah.
And yeah, so I felt so sentiently about that. And then my friend, it's so interesting because as she was describing this encounter with her loved ones that visited her, my friend that called me, could see it. I
Yeah.
realized that like my third eye was on.
Hmm.
Like I could tell like like the blueprint of her house that I'd never been to, and all of these things,
Yeah.
and where these spirits were standing while as she was explaining this to me. And it's so fascinating because it's just something that you don't really register because it's how you operate, you know?
Yeah. You just think that's your imagination or your mind
Yes.
trying to like put the pieces together to make sense for
Yes.
yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's like mediumship is literally nothing like I thought. And it's so much subtler than I ever would have thought. I really thought it would be like you know, like I don't know, an image of somebody being like like telling you all of the things you need to learn or all the things you need to say. And for me, it's not like that at
No.
all.
No, and I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about mediumship is people feel like, and I do know, I mean, I do believe there are people out there who have different forms of abilities with the spirit world. So
Yes.
I definitely do believe that there are people who literally can see spirits like walking through spaces or whatnot. But for the type of mediumship you and I do, and I think a lot of people that work in this space, it's all mental mediumship or
Yes.
telepathic communication, which is extremely subtle and fast. Would you
Yes.
also agree that it comes in very quickly?
Yeah, definitely.
So you have to be in the right state of mind to receive those impressions and understand what they mean.
Hmm.
And there's nothing better than when, like, I'm like right now, like listening to your story, like I'm getting my own pictures in my head of what it's
Yes.
like. And
Yes.
I'm sure if you and I went through the details, I probably might be getting some things right, just like you probably got a lot of things right based on what your friend was sharing with
Hmm.
you. Um, but people don't go around with their friends and family saying like, okay, you just explained that to me and here's what I pictured. Is this correct? Like we just
Yes.
don't do that.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Unless you're a
so
medium.
true. Yeah, exactly. We do it
Yes.
with each other. Yes.
Okay, so I would love to ask you another question.
Sure.
And I think this might be a good question for both of us to answer is, so you've discovered this ability that you can tap into the spirit world both psychically or intuitively and mediumistically. And then you're like left to your, for me, I felt like I got kicked out of the bird's nest. And it's like, now what do I do?
Hmm.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Hmm.
So I would love for you to share what did you do next? What came next?
Great question. I am addicted to learning. So I
Mm.
feel like the bird's nest tried to kick me out, and I would not let the bird's nest kick me out. I am clinging on
You
for dear
double
life.
down. You double
Yes.
down. I
Yes.
love
So I'm
it.
like, no, I will be staying here as long as I can. So what I did is I went and sought out as many different mentors and classes and just really saturated my life with mediumship. I was
Mm.
so literally at this point I could not get enough. At one point I had three mentorships going at the same time because I was just insatiable.
Yeah.
And it was so beneficial because each of these mentors had very different styles. They were trained by very different incredible mediums. So I was getting like I want to say like a rounded education, but in a very interesting way.
Mm.
But yes, very I just I wanted more. And there's honestly, that's still kind of my baseline is like maybe if I take one more class, I'll be 10% better, you know? I feel like
Yeah.
that's the temptation when
Oh. I was
so
gonna, so I have
what
another
was
question for
yours?
you because I think you and I, this is a reason why I think you and I are drawn to each other is we both approach mediumship very similarly, where it's like I just want to learn everything there is to learn
Yes.
because there's so much to learn. There's so many avenues to go down
Yes.
in this realm is what I would call it. And us being perfect examples is like you don't know what you're capable of until you've tried it.
Hmm.
Like you just don't know.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's so amazing because I also think that by trying, like learning from different mentors, trying different modalities, is you find what you're actually called to do.
Yes.
Or what you're called to do is drawn to you. Some way or another, it's gonna get you there.
Yes. Yes. And I think what's so interesting about mediumship and these like intuitive arts is there is so much out there. Like there is a flavor that is going to be delicious for you. So
Yes.
if evidential mental mediumship is not your flavor, there are other things out there. There are so many other ways that this manifests. Um,
Mhm.
and I want to try them all.
Me too.
Betsy, what did you do when you got kicked out of the bird's nest?
So when I got kicked out of the bird's nest, it was kind of a rough go for me, to be quite honest. Um, like I said, I had done that reading for our friend, my husband and my friend, and then I started to practice with other friends. But unfortunately, at the same time that I was just like launching out of the bird's nest, unfortunately, I found out that my dad was quite sick and was diagnosed with stage 4 bile duct cancer. And the prognosis was not good. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks a little bit, which
Of course.
obviously life life comes first, right? So like I said before, I had in the past, I've had some difficult family issues, and my dad and I were those people who kind of were like
Hmm.
this.
Sure.
Um, and so I do feel like looking back now, it's been almost 2 years since he's passed, but looking back, I almost feel like this was almost another initiation I had to walk through. Obviously, I would have never chosen this after just coming off of the heels of losing my mother. Um,
I couldn't imagine.
and it was tough. But while my dad was going through his cancer treatments, I continued to work on mediumship, not at full-time capacity, but as much as I could, because to me that was an emotional and creative outlet. And working with the spirit world also reminds me every time I do that this physical world is temporary. And I didn't have that type of insight when my mother was approaching her end of life, but to have this new understanding as my dad was walking through his end of life, it was really interesting because I just had this inner knowing, like, I know he's going to be okay. I know his soul is going to be, welcomed with love on the other side. But I will say, I mean, and I hope that this can reach other people who may be dealing with exploring their abilities while also going through some very heavy life experiences, is you can sometimes think like, did I create this? Did I bring this on myself? And after working with spirit in hundreds of readings, like these challenges come into our lives not as punishment or as a response to something that we've done. It's just what we're supposed to walk through. Basically, when I got kicked out of the bird's nest, I had to walk through another grief path alongside the growth path. But for me, I find that doing those in tandem is kind of what kept me grounded in my faith, which my
Mhm.
faith, you talked a bit about your faith. I didn't grow up in a very traditional religious household, although religion was a big part of my life and I had exposure to it, and I'm so grateful for that. And this mediumship, and this is something I'm sure we'll delve into later on, is that this has really reshaped my own personal faith and my
Mm.
own personal beliefs. And
Yes.
I'm just so blessed and grateful that I get to experience or have these beliefs based on my own personal experiences with spirit. This
Mhm.
is not because of what somebody else has experienced or what somebody else tells me I should believe. This is because of what I've experienced and witnessed for myself, or what I have witnessed on behalf of my clients time and time
Yes.
again. And
Yes.
there's something like no one can take that away from you.
Mm-mm.
Nobody can.
Nope.
And there's just this like beauty and resolve in that inner knowing that no matter what comes, like we're going to get through this and we're going to be okay.
I like to think of like these difficult moments, these difficult times, these difficult relationships or experiences as portals, you
Oh,
know?
yes.
And
Absolutely.
I feel like when you're talking, it feels like these are the things that literally transported you into like this higher timeline, this different um way of looking at the world, different way of looking at spirit, experiencing things. And I feel like without that, it would have been a longer journey, but it feels like this, you like teleported to like this different zone.
Yeah. There's been a lot of times when I am journaling or, talking about this with somebody, and it's like I went through some really heavy, dark life experiences that literally could have broken me, but instead they broke me open. They
Mhm.
broke me wide open. And it was like once once that opened, it was like I realized I had been preparing for this and learning for this my whole life without even realizing it.
Mhm.
And so I honestly feel like once I did that walk around the lake with my mediumship mentor and knew that I could do this, it was like I felt like I got shot out of a cannon. Like here's where old
Mhm.
Betsy used to be, and then boom, like
Mhm.
just shot out of a cannon, like whoa.
Mhm.
And so I do feel kind of like things are starting to like catch up. Like I'm still getting used to this life
Oh,
with this
yes.
experience.
Mhm.
I've only been doing this for 2.5 years. And
Mhm.
so it's like it's amazing, but it's like I'm still having to come to grips with this new reality for myself.
Mhm. I think that's such a underrated what do I want to say? I don't want to, it's not a consequence, a side effect of
Mm.
mediumship and kind of spiritual journeys. Um is the fact that for me, it literally broke my entire worldview and my entire personal view of myself. It
Yes.
literally shatters everything and rebuilds this completely different landscape that
Yeah.
you didn't even know was possible before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh, that's a great way to explain it. Yeah. Because you
yeah,
really do. You really have to, like everything has to kind of, in tarot, it's the tower moment. Everything has to fall to pieces in order for it to be built back up again.
totally.
And none of us would ever choose to go into those tower moments, which is why they just have to present themselves when it's the right time for us to walk through those.
100%.
So I know, and you know, that there are other people out there just like us who did
Mhm,
not ever fathom that they would be able to do this.
mhm.
But I want people who are sensitive, getting intuitive hits or premonitions that are coming true, or just an inner feeling of like you might be connected to something or getting impressions from a higher source, to have a place to go to feel like they're welcomed.
If you are listening to this and you're curious, you're intuitive, you're sensitive, you might just be just trying to figure this stuff out, just know that you are welcome here. This is your place and you belong in this conversation. That is exactly what this resource is here for.
We're creating what we wish we had had available to us when we were starting down the path of our mediumship abilities. Place to learn from other new mediums because you can find professional mediums who've been doing this for decades online, but you don't see a whole lot of new mediums. And it helps to see that you don't have to have decades of experience under your belt to be a legitimate medium in the real world.
Yes. Yes. So we want to get to know you. We want to know who's in this community, who we can take care of. So if you can drop a comment, we want to know how long you've been doing mediumship, what conversations you want to have about mediumship, what do you wish you knew in the beginning, or what are you looking to explore on your journey? Drop a comment, let us know.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're a new medium like us, or a developing medium, or even a seasoned medium, we would love to hear from you. What was helpful on your mediumship journey? Or what topics do you wish you had more resources on when you were stepping into your abilities? Because we would love to support mediums in every stage, however we can.
Thank you for listening to our first episode of Between Mediums podcast.
Yes.
And we will see you in episode 2.
See you soon.